Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Blue Whale and welcome back to another in-depth guide, and today we're going to be talking about Ekko. And Ekko is actually my favorite champion to play in the game right now, and not to be cocky or anything, but I do think I'm very skilled at him. So I'll try to teach you guys as much as I can in this video, and if you know anyone else who wants to play Ekko, please show them this, because this guide should be a good one. So in this guide, we're going to cover a general overview of Ekko, abilities, runes, masteries, item sets, and then finally a gameplay. There will be timestamps in the description below if you want to skip to a part you need, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Ekko is an AP champion, meaning he deals magic damage through his abilities. Ekko can be played a few ways. There is the full squishy damage route, a more damage-oriented bruiser route, and a more tank-oriented bruiser route. Ekko is a fairly weak early game jungler that becomes strong during the mid game and continues to scale into the late game. As for your own team, Ekko can fill the role of damage or tank, so honestly he's never an awful pick. However, either build you'll still be dealing magic damage, so if you already have an AP top and mid, it's not that wise to pick Ekko. Ekko has an extremely powerful stun in his W, however the trade-off for that power is it's also extremely difficult to hit. This means when it comes to your teammates you want more strong AoE crowd control, that way either you can follow up on theirs, or if you hit your W they can follow up on yours. Ekko excels in teamfights, so it's always better to have teamfight oriented teammates if possible, such as Malphite or Sona. However, this should not dissuade you from picking Ekko because he's honestly okay with most team comps, as long as you don't already have too much AP. Enemy champions are much more influential on whether you want to pick Ekko or not. Due to his weak early game, you need to be careful of when you pick Ekko and how you play certain matchups. In general, you want to avoid champions that are extremely strong early or are very proficient invaders, champions such as Lee Sin, Nidalee, or Elise. If you do run into these powerful early champions invading you, about 70% of the time, it's just best to leave them and go try to farm somewhere else, at least in solo queue. 1. You can't really rely on your teammates to help you, and 2. If you can make it to the mid game without feeding, you'll almost always begin to outscale those kinds of champions. Ekko is a very mobile champion, and therefore he excels at punishing immobile champions. Also, immobile champions have a lot harder time dodging your W. Anivia, Ryze, and most marksmen are good examples of these kind of champions. Also, Ekko is very good into assassin champions because if they don't instantly kill you, your ultimate will pretty much completely counter them. If they do one-shot you, no champion would have really helped you anyways. Now, let's move on to abilities. Ekko's passive is called Z-Drive Resonance. Ekko's abilities and basic attacks apply Z-Drive Resonance to affected enemies upon damaging them, lasting up to 4 seconds and stacking up to 3 times. At 3 stacks, Z-Drive Resonance is consumed to deal a scaling base amount plus 80% of your AP as magic damage to the target, which applies spell effects and slows them by a scaling amount for a scaling duration. Against champions, Ekko also gains a scaling amount of bonus movement speed. Some things to note: notice how almost all parts of your passive scale, and once again I want to emphasize that Ekko is a champion who scales in the mid and late game. Your passive deals 80% of your AP and is a large chunk of your damage combo. Also, against champions you gain a bonus movement speed. This is extremely useful for repositioning in teamfights or simply running away. Ekko's Q is called Time Winder. Ekko throws a device in the target direction, dealing magic damage to enemies along its path. At maximum range or upon hitting an enemy champion, the device slows to a stop and expands, creating a field that slows nearby enemies. After a short delay, the device contracts and rushes back to Ekko, dealing additional magic damage to enemies along its path. Some things to note are the outgoing damage is weaker than the returning damage, however if you hit the initial Q it's pretty hard to miss the second part. The device comes back to Ekko, so if you move around you can change its course pretty drastically. This is Ekko's bread and butter, therefore you should always max Q first. Ekko's W is Parallel Convergence. The passive is that when enemy targets are below 30% of their maximum HP, Ekko's basic attacks deal 5% with an additional 2.2% per 100 points of AP of his target's missing health as bonus magic damage, and this bonus is capped at 150 versus monsters. The active is a delayed skill shot AoE field, which slows enemies who walk in it. If Ekko is in the field, whether he's alive, dead, or even in stasis, the sphere detonates, shielding Ekko for 2 seconds and stunning all enemies inside for 2.25 seconds. Some things to note are the passive of this spell is why you take it at rank 1 while jungling. Although it is capped versus minions and monsters, that cap doesn't mean anything on your first clear. Also, stunning the monsters will save you some HP. The active is pretty much the most difficult part of Ekko, and requires a lot of predicting enemy movements on your part. Even if you miss the active, you should still try to touch the sphere in order to get the shield. A common trick on Ekko is to build a Zhonya's, charge into the enemy team, place W on yourself, and then activate Zhonya's, and once your Zhonya's ends, it will stun all enemies who stayed near you. The shield strength scales with 150% of your AP, and this is the primary reason that Ekko can build full damage and still be okay. Ekko's E is Phase Dive. Ekko dashes in a target location, causing his next basic attack to become a long-range blink and deal bonus magic damage, which applies on hit and spell effects. Phase Dive is what gives Ekko a large portion of his mobility and kiting playstyle, even though he is a melee. The first dash is pretty small. It can go over short walls on Summoner's Rift, but not the larger ones. The second part is a lock-on, so if the enemy happens to flash away while you are blinking, you will follow them. Also, Ekko's E is one of the best ways to actually hit his W. First cast your W at the lane you are ganking, then use your E near the end of your W's delay. This way the enemy will see both you and your W at about the same time and they won't have much time to react. One final note, your E is an auto reset, however you really don't use it that often as an auto reset on Ekko. Ekko's ultimate is Chrono Break. While Chrono Break is not on cooldown, Ekko is followed by a hologram of himself that tracks where he was 4 seconds ago. Activating Chrono Break, Ekko blinks to his hologram's location, becoming untargetable during the blink, and upon impact, Ekko heals for a percentage of the damage taken within the last 4 seconds, while also dealing damage to any nearby enemies. This is the other part of Ekko that is very difficult to master. The passive means that enemies always know where your ult will strike, so hitting it can sometimes be impossible. During the blink, there is a short delay where Ekko is intargetable, and this can be used to dodge certain spells, such as Caitlyn's ultimate. The magic damage has a high base amount and scales with 130% of your AP, and can theoretically hit all 5 enemies, making it one of the more powerful ultimates in the game. 2 common usages of Ekko's ultimate are 1. Throwing your W at the passive and then ulting, therefore you'll land in your W and you'll be able to stun any nearby enemies. 2. Use Zhonya's and ult immediately afterwards. If any enemies are nearby to finish you out of Zhonya's, you'll hit your ultimate onto them. Now, let's move on to runes and masteries. Okay, so here we are on the client, and a couple of things to say before we get started is 1, the music that you can hear in the background has been versus Abyssal cult leader Audrey from the Pokémon Insurgence version theme. There'll be a link in the description below. Also, if you want to join this chat room on the client, you should. It's called Whale Lounge. I'm always in it while I'm on League, and if you post any questions there, I'll be able to answer them in between games. Also, if I'm looking to play normals, I'll look there first to see if you guys want to play. Right now, I probably won't be playing that many normals, but if there's a fun game mode that comes out, which Earth will definitely play a ton, but until then, pretty much featured game modes, I'll play with you guys. So you can join it now, you can join it then, or you don't even have to join it at all. And if you don't know how to join one, you go down to the view your chat rooms, join a chat room, you would type in Whale Lounge, and it would pull it up. Let me turn down the music just a shade before we get into it. Oops, that was up. No, I guess I'll leave it. Okay, that should be good. Alright, anyways. Now on to the runes. And by the way, I am Plat 3 now, but that's just because this season just reset. Pretty much everyone that was at the Diamond Elo that I was at is around Plat 3 or Plat 2. Don't get discouraged by that. Anyways, on to runes and masteries. So runes are really straightforward. You're going to always want to run these runes every time you play Ekko, whether you're going damage, offense, whether your verse is 5 AD, 5 AP, doesn't matter. You're going to want to run these runes. What they are attack speed reds, armor yellows, ability power quints, 6 flat CDR blues, and 3 scaling CDR blues. The attack speed marks help you clear the jungle a lot quicker, and they help you get off your passive when you're dueling somebody. The armor yellows are so that you don't die in the jungle. The flat CDR blues give you a lot of strength early, and then the other 3 scaling CDR blues will cap out your build at 10% from your rune page. And finally, ability power quints. These are pretty much the best quints to take on Ekko. If you don't have ability power quints, I don't think they're that expensive, so you should probably get some. Magic Pin would be okay, but it would hurt your jungle clear a lot. And I guess attack speed, quints, and ability power marks, you could do that if you just happen to have that combo of runes. But really, this is what you want to do. And this is what I've always done, and I'll probably always do. I'll let you guys know if I change this for any reason. Now, Masteries is where it gets a little bit different. We're not talking about Lee Sin anymore. We're talking about Ekko. So, basically, if you're brand new to Ekko, which I'm assuming a lot of you are watching this guide, I'd recommend going Tank Ekko most of the time. And these are the Masteries you want to go on Tank Ekko. These Masteries also work for one of the damage builds, which we'll talk a little bit more about when we get to the item sets. But basically, there are two ways you can go damage build Bruiser on Ekko. The first way is that you build, health and AP items. You build a mix of both. That way you'll get a lot of health and you'll get a lot of AP, so you won't be instantly dying. The other way is if you just want to build damage items, you can take Strength of the Ages instead on a damage build. That way you'll get 300 extra life from this. That'll get you tanky enough to where you don't just instantly die, and then you can build your damage items. You really should never take the let's see. Alright, it's number 5 and number 10. I'll be able to remember that. Anyways, you really shouldn't take these Masteries if you're just planning on building raw damage items. These Masteries are a lot better if you're going to mix it up. So if you're taking health and AP items like Rod of Ages, Rylai's Crystal Scepter, Haunting Guys, Liandry's, stuff like that, these are those Masteries. But if you're going, if you want to get Zonia's early, then you really need to take these Masteries. So we'll talk through them, basically. And really this should be moved to this, but anyways, so in the Ferocity tree you're going to take Sorcery. This increases ability damage. It's only 2%, and the 2% is really negligible. However, it's still better than the attack speed. You have enough attack speed from your runes, and even though it's only 2%, if you're going full damage, when your ult's doing well over 1,000 damage, 2% is a large difference in that. Double-edged sword, because you are a melee champion. If this is your first time playing Ekko, I don't recommend you use this rune page at all, but you can switch it for Feast if you have problems clearing the jungle. But once you get used to clearing on Ekko, you need double-edged sword. Natural talent. In the past, I said that natural talent was really bad compared to Vampirism, but natural talent's actually really good on AP champions, especially AP champions that auto-attack a lot, like Ekko. It's really actually bad for AD champions, so like Lee Sin or Rengar or those, you don't need natural talent, but on Ekko it's actually pretty good. This will hurt your clear a little bit though, so if you're brand new to Ekko, once again, Vampirism makes it easier to clear, but natural talent's the better mastery to take. And then finally, Oppressor versus Bounty Hunter. So basically, Bounty Hunter is a gamble. Bounty Hunter is only better than Oppressor if you kill 3 different enemy champions, and that's not ever guaranteed to happen in a game whatsoever. And Oppressor, you'll deal 2.5 increased damage to targets with impaired movement. So when they're slowed from your passive or your Q, you're doing 2.5% increased damage to them. But if you get 3 kills on Bounty Hunter, then you're going to be doing 3% increased damage all the time. So really, it's up to you. If you're in games where just a lot of kills happen, you can go Bounty Hunter, but it is a gamble, and you'll see most higher elo players take Oppressor because you'll always get the benefit from Oppressor, and some matches you might not ever get a better benefit from Bounty Hunter. Now onto the Cunning Tree. On an offensive build, you do want to take Thunderlord's Decree because it scales so well with your passive. This is your 3rd attacker spell on enemy champion. Your passive is your 3rd attacker spell on enemy champion. Basically, Thunderlords will go off with your passive and it'll make your nuke a lot larger. I do take Savagery over Wanderer because I would rather have an easy clear with Savagery than to have more mobility and a really bad clear. And Ekko's first clear is actually pretty hard either way, so you do need to take Savagery here. As for the next 3, I am on patch 6.1, and because of that, Assassin actually makes you deal increased damage to minions and monsters while you're jungling, as long as there's not an allied champion around, so it's actually really, really good on junglers right now. However, I know as of patch 6.2, they're going to make this where it's increased damage to champions when no allied champions are nearby, and then I really wouldn't recommend it on Ekko. You don't really look for singling out and assassinating people on Ekko. It's more about team fighting, so I would say Runic Affinity is a lot better as of patch 6.2. And on patch 6.1, if you're having trouble ganking, Runic Affinity will make you have red buff longer, and that'll make ganks a lot easier. So if you're new to Ekko, you might still want to go Runic Affinity, but Assassin helps you clear a lot quicker, and that's why I'm taking it now. But 6.2, definitely switch it to Runic Affinity. Merciless over Meditation. You do kind of have mana problems if you don't get your early blues, but not so much that you should give up Merciless. Merciless means you do damage, increased damage when they're below 40% health. Meditation just gives you some more mana regen. Don't take that. Bandit versus Dangerous Game. Bandit is a laner mastery. It's actually pretty good on all laners, not just supports, but it's definitely not good on junglers because you're only going to be autoing champions when you gank or team fights, and at that point, you know, it's just not worth it. Dangerous Game, you'll restore 5% of your missing health and mana when you get a kill or assist. This, along with your ult, makes you stay alive pretty much throughout whole team fights, and you know that's going to help you a lot. Now, Precision versus Intelligence. I take Precision because it's flat armor and magic pin. One, you do rely on autos a lot, so having armor pin then is pretty good for your kit. Also, the flat magic pin is going to help you out too since you didn't take any magic pin on your runes. But if you want to go for a 45% CDR build, you can do that as well. I'm not going to say it's better than Precision. I think Precision's the better one to take. But if you want to go Intelligence, you can. You know, it is pretty funny having 45% CDR on Ekko, but it's not necessarily needed. And finally, we already talked about Thunderlords. It's pretty much like another passive, and it's very good on Ekko. Now, on to the other masteries. And once again, we'll talk more about the item sets that you would take these masteries with when we get to the item set portion. Right now, we'll talk about Ekko Tank. So if you're going full tank, well, you never really go full tank. So if you're going Bruiser Tank, or if you're going the full damage build, these are the masteries that you should take. Ferocity is the exact same. Taking 12 in Ferocity makes you do a lot more damage than taking 12 in Cunning. And while you are being a tank on this route, there's really no reason to go into Cunning over Ferocity. I mean, you could get bonus buffs for a little bit longer, but honestly, this build, this just makes you do so much more damage early with Natural Talent. And, you know, I'm kind of stuttering here, but basically this gives you more damage, and there's no huge benefit of going into the first 12 of Cunning, so I don't really recommend you do that. Now, onto the defense tree. Unyielding. Ekko is what I like to call a resistance tank, not a HP tank. An HP tank would be like Maokai or Zac, and therefore you're going to be building a lot of resistances, so you're going to get a lot of uses out of Unyielding. This also actually increases the armor from your rune page, which will make your early clear slightly easier if you take this, but really it's because you build pretty much all resistance items on Ekko, and this gets a lot of usage. Next up, Tough Skin versus Explorer. This is pretty much the same argument as Savagery versus Wanderer. I would rather have an easier jungle clear than be able to get around the map quicker, so I take Tough Skin. Next up, Runic Armor. Shield, healing, regeneration, and lifesteal on you are 8% stronger. This means that, one, your jungle items lifesteal is 8% stronger. I don't think this means that you have 18% lifesteal. I think it's 8% of 10%, so it's like an extra 0.2 maybe. But anyways, that's not the point. Your W gets a lot bigger with this, and your ult heals you a lot more with this. It's definitely better than having 45 flat health. That's pretty much useless on Ekko. Next up, Insight reduces the cooldown of summoner spells by 15%. This reduces Smite cooldown and Flash cooldown. And Flash, Ekko doesn't really die if you play him properly, but sometimes you do need to Flash. It's better to have Flash on a lower cooldown. The alternative to this is Perseverance. If you think you're dying a lot on Ekko, then you can take Perseverance. It'll make you a lot tankier, especially about that time where you need to ult, or right after you ult. That'll be when Perseverance is going off, so it'll make you a lot tankier, but I prefer to have lower cooldown on Smite and Flash. Then finally, Swiftness versus Legendary Guardian. While Ekko is a resistance tank, and you would get a lot of usage out of Legendary Guardian, it's much better to have the 15% tenacity and slow resist. And a lot of people have been complaining about Merc Treads, and I don't know if you guys know why they nerfed Merc Treads, but it's because of this mastery. If you take Swiftness and Merc Treads, you'll have a lot more tenacity than what Merc Treads used to give you. And Riot didn't want you to get... and if they hadn't nerfed it, it would just be insane how much tenacity you just get from this mastery and the boots. So that's why Merc Treads got nerfed, and that's also why you do need to take this mastery, because if you don't take this and you just get Merc Treads, you're going to be one of the people that's complaining, oh, Merc Treads don't do anything. They do, but they have to be paired with this mastery. So if you're versus any crowd control at all, I recommend you take this. If you're versus like If somehow they don't have a single stun on their whole team and they just have slows and stuff, then you can take Legendary Guardian, but I never change this. I always leave it at Swiftness, and I recommend you do the same. And then finally, Strength of the Ages. So, if you guys have seen my first Ekko, my preseason Ekko guide, because I did make one for the preseason as well. In the video, I said Bond of Stone, but Bond of Stone is really bad on anything but supports now, so don't take it. And then later I said, I threw in an annotation, I think I said, well, Grass in the Undying is really good. But no. Strength of the Ages just got super buffed this patch, and I don't know if they're going to keep it in the current state that it is. If they don't, ask me about it, and I'll let you know what I think. But right now, it gives you 300 bonus health, and then after you reach the max bonus, these kills... So basically, when you kill a large monster, it'll give you 10 bonus permanent health, and then once you kill 30, you'll have the bonus 300 maximum health. And then that way, once you reach this bonus, as soon as you start killing large monsters or nearby siege minions die, you'll restore 6% of your missing health. So this mastery got super buffed. The only time that you need to take Grasp over Strength of the Ages is if your champion simply doesn't do any damage without having Grass in the Undying. And that's certainly not the case for Ekko. Some examples are like Maokai or maybe Nautilus. You know, both of them you would still need Grass because you just don't do that much damage. But Ekko, Strength of the Ages is way better. One, you're a resistance tank as well, so you can build more raw resistance items like Frozen Gauntlets or Abyssal, and then you can have Strength of the Ages and you'll still have a lot of HP. This is also increased by Cinderhulk if you're going the full tank route, so it gives you 325 life, I think it is, instead, or maybe it's 350. It's one of the two instead of 300. So really, it was a debate between Strength of the Ages and Grass in the Undying before this patch. But this patch, when they made it to where jungle monsters heal you, even if they nerf this down to where it's like 3% of your max life versus monsters, or even back to the 100 where it was before, it doesn't matter. As long as jungle monsters heal you, this is going to be the best one for Ekko. If they don't, then ask me and I'll let you know what I think. So that's it for Masteries, and now we'll move on to item sets, and I do actually have to build the item sets, so I'm just going to pause it right here. Okay, so we're back with all the items, and what I did for... we can actually remove this. What I did for the items this time, since there are 3 really distinct build paths on Ekko, I put pretty much my favorite 6 first, and then ones that you can get but I don't really recommend second. So if you guys just want to like copy these immediately, just know that I usually take the first 6, and then all the rest are also good, but I wouldn't really recommend them. So anyways, as for starting items, you do use AP, and you are a spell-based champion, so Hunter's Talisman is definitely the way you want to go. I usually take Refillable Potion on Ekko, but that's because I'm really experienced with Ekko. If this is your first time playing Ekko, I recommend that you probably take 3 health pots, because you're gonna not... If this is literally the first time you played Ekko, you're gonna try to clear the jungle, and you're gonna get super low, and you're gonna be like, this champion's garbage if you take Refillable Potion. So take health pots until you get kind of used to it. Then you can take Refillable Potion instead. And also, if you're having mana problems, then you might need to build a Hunter's Potion. So really, if you think you're going to have to build a Hunter's Potion, you do want to start with Refillable, but I don't know. Ekko's first clear is just pretty difficult, and there's not really that many ways to work around it. The easiest way to clear it is if you're going the tank build path, then it's not that hard. Or the tank masteries, pretty much. So whether you go tank Ekko or AP Nuke, you probably won't have that trouble, but if you're going the AP Bruiser route, you might have a little bit of trouble on your first clear. Anyways, Refillable Potion is best if you can get it. If not, go with the 3 health pots. If you need to get a Hunter's Potion, if you feel like you're always out of mana, then you can. I don't ever get it, just because I don't like wasting the gold if I don't have to, but it does help a lot. It fixes any mana problems you might have, and you're pretty much full life the full time while you're clearing. So if you need to go Hunter's Potion, don't be afraid to, but I just generally don't myself. And then finally, you do want a Yellow Trinket. Yellow Trinket will stop you from being invaded early if you use it properly. And then on your first back, you need to trade it out for a Red Trinket. Now onto the builds. I guess I can leave... Yeah, I'll have timestamps in the description below for each of the different build paths. So if you want to skip to that part, I guess you can do that. But we're going to just go down the list. So as for tank Ekko, you're going to go Cinderhulk. Obviously, you're a tank. I always go Green Smite on Ekko just because I really like being able to place wards while I have a red trinket, and you do need to be taking red trinket, by the way, on Ekko. You are a jungler. Only champion that you don't is Lee Sin, but that's a completely different topic. So I like to go green smite because I do like to have wards even with a red trinket. However, if this is your first time playing Ekko, you can go blue smite. Blue smite will help you gank a lot, and if you can't hit Ekko's W, you're going to need help ganking. And red smite's okay. I wouldn't really recommend red smite unless if you're versus an on-hit enemy jungler, because then red smite's like the way to counter on-hit enemy junglers. Or if you just like red smite a lot, it's okay. It's not bad, but it's not my preferred one, because I almost always go green smite. If I didn't go green smite, I'd probably go blue smite just to make ganks a lot easier. But you can go red smite. It's there. I just really don't recommend it. And then on tank Ekko, I pretty much always go boots of swiftness. If you're versus like 10,000 stuns or something, obviously go Merc Treads, and if you're versus 5 AD, obviously go Ninja Tabby. But if they just have a pretty balanced team, not too much CC, Boots of Swiftness are by far the best boots in the game right now. They give you the most movement speed while in combat, and they're also really, really cheap. So if you can go Boots of Swiftness, you should. As for the core items on Ekko, it's pretty much Iceborne Gauntlets and Abyssal Scepter. I do tend to get all 6 of these items every time I play tank Ekko, and you can just copy paste this. This is by far and away the best tank Ekko build. Trust me, I've played it so much, and I play Ekko so much, and I can... Sorry, still a little bit sick from last week, but I can guarantee that these 6 items are the best ones to take on Ekko. But Iceborne Gauntlets, it gives you 20% CDR. It's the cheapest way to get 20% CDR on an item in the game. It gives you 500 mana. As soon as you get Iceborne Gauntlets, you're not going to have any mana problems. That's another reason why I don't really like going Hunter's Potion. And then also, it gives you a Spell Blade. And no matter how you're playing Ekko, you do want a Spell Blade effect because you auto-attack so much and your spells aren't on a super long cooldown, so Spell Blade just really synergizes with your kit. So, Iceborne Gauntlets are the way to go on tank Ekko. They also give you 65 armor, which is a lot of armor for a single item, and they give you the Spellblade, which 1 increases your damage, and 2 it slows enemies even more. So you're not only going to be slowing them from your Q, your passive, but then even when you go in with your E, they'll be slowed. If you just auto them after your Q, but you missed your Q, you know, all that stuff. Iceborne Gauntlets help a lot with early ganks, and they're just a really good item on Ekko. Now onto Abyssal Scepter. Abyssal Scepter is such a good item right now, and one, it's really, really cheap. It's only $23.50, and it gives you 70 ability power, which is a lot of ability power. I think only, yeah, I mean, Zonia's only gives you 30 more ability power, and it's more than 1,000 more gold. So Abyssal Scepter is really high AP. It also gives you 50 magic resist, which isn't bad at all. If you're versus any AP champions, as soon as you get Abyssal Scepter, you're not really going to have that problem. And you do need to build this pretty early because you don't have any magic resist on your rune page. So it is pretty important you get AP early. Also, on top of all that, it reduces the magic resist of nearby enemies by 20. So you deal magic damage. This will reduce their magic resist. You don't have any magic pin on your runes, so getting it here will help you a lot. And on top of all that, you guys know that Thunderlords is the most popular keystone in the game right now, and Thunderlords deals magic damage. So even if you're versus 5 AD, you should still get Abyssal Scepter because 1, it reduces their magic resist, which means you do more damage, and 2, they probably have enough Thunderlords to where it's going to really make a difference. Now as for the last 2 items, I usually go Deadman's into Spirit Visage, but if you're versus a bunch of AP champions, you can go Spirit Visage into Deadman's or whatever. Deadman's, you guys know, it's probably my favorite jungle item in the game. It gives you a ton of armor, or it gives you good armor, good mobility, and insane... Sorry, I messed up twice. It gives you good health, good armor, and insane mobility. And all 3 of those things together make it a very, very good jungle item. It also gives you a large burst on your first auto attack, and Ekko's combo, like we said earlier, is Q, let your Q hit twice, and then E in, and when you have a Deadman's Plate, that E will do even a little more damage. Even though you're tank Ekko, it's always good to do damage. And then finally, Spirit Visage. Spirit Visage completely synergizes with your kit. You get 500 health, you get 70 magic resist, which is the most an item can give you. It gives you increased base health regen, nobody cares, but it gives you 10% CDR, and the 10% CDR from Visage, plus the 20% from your Iceborne Gauntlets, plus the 10% from your rune page is going to put you at 40%, and it's very important that you hit 40% CDR on tank Ekko. On the damage Ekkos, it's not as important because you'll still be doing plenty of damage with your abilities, even though they're not on such a low cooldown. But on Tank Ekko, it's really important. So make sure you're getting Iceborne Gauntlets and Spirit Visage, and you're using the runes I showed. If you don't have CDR runes, then on Tank Ekko, I want you to take CDR boots, because this will give you the other 10%, and then you'll be good. But otherwise, Swiftness are vastly superior, but if you need it for your 40%, take these instead. Now, also the thing, not only does the 10% CDR round off your build, but it increases all healing received by 20%. If your support has a heal, that'll increase on you, and it increases how much your ult heals you. It makes you wait. This item is just perfect for Ekko. It's like as good on Ekko as it is on Maokai or Zac, so recommend it a lot. Now, as for the alternatives, if you're versus a Vayne or a Gangplank or a Tryndamere or a Yasuo, I recommend you go Randuin's instead of Deadman's. Randuin's gives you more armor, 50 less health, which isn't really that big a deal at all. And when hit by basic attacks, it reduces the attacker's attack speed, so that's why it's really good versus Vayne. And it reduces damage just taken from critical strikes. So if you're versus Tryndamere, Yasuo, or Gangplank, take this. Also, versus double AD carry, you might want this. It's pretty good, but if you don't have to take it, Deadman's is better. Thornmail, if you're versus 5 AD, take Thornmail instead of Spirit Visage. You want to have 40% CDR, but Thornmail is a really, really strong item if you already have this much armor in your build. So Iceborne Gauntlets, Deadman's, and Thornmail versus 5 AD. And Thornmail's damage will be increased by his Abyssal Scepter. It goes really well with your build, but it's not better than Spirit Visage unless you're versus 5 AD. Banshee's Veil, pretty much same story except opposite. If you're versus 5 AP, take it instead of Deadman's. Otherwise, don't take it. Warmogs. Warmogs is actually a really good item in the game, but I just don't think it fits into Ekko's build. So I don't really get it, but if you want to get it, it's pretty much like you have a portable fountain with you at all times, and you heal insane amounts whenever you're out of combat, and then you're almost always ready to fight. So it is good, but I just don't think it really fits into your build, so I don't recommend getting it, but it is good. Righteous Glory is okay on Ekko too. It fixes mana problems if you're still having those. It gives you 500 health, so it isn't that bad. And then when you use your W, you can Righteous Glory in. That way your team will follow up on you, and you can get to the target a lot quicker. But, I mean, it's not that great on Ekko. It's okay, but I wouldn't really ever get it. And then finally, Zizirot is a very good item. It gives you dual high resistances. And if you place it properly, then it can pressure the map for you, but like I said, these 6 items are just so perfect on Ekko. On Tank Ekko, I don't really recommend any of these, but they're all okay. Now, moving on to the first AP build, which is the AP Bruiser build. And this is the build that, once you get good at Ekko, this is the better AP build. But if you're brand new to Ekko, I'd probably recommend actually going this one. But anyways, as for this one, you're going to get Runic Echoes, of course, because you're an ability powered champion. Runic Echoes is actually a really good item on Ekko because it gives you 10% movement speed, 60 ability power, which isn't that bad, and it solves all of your mana problems because if you hit a monster in the jungle, it'll restore 18% of your missing mana. Basically, this is a really good item for Ekko because of the movement speed. It's fine on other junglers, and it really didn't solve all the problems that I think Riot was trying to do with it, but it's really good on Ekko, so definitely take it. You're going to take Sorcerer's Shoes if you're going either of the AP builds, and you're not going to get 40% CDR. There's really not a convenient way to do it as far as damage builds go. You could take CDR boots here, you could have Lich Bane, and then you would still need 10% even with the 10% from your runes. Or you could not take Sorc boots here, you could get Lich Bane and you could get like Morella Nomicon, and that would put you at 40%, but that's a bad item on Ekko, so, you know, there's just not really a good way, so I'm not going to recommend. Because of that, we're just going to focus on getting Sorc Shoes, doing more damage with the abilities that we have. Next up is Rod of Ages. Now, Rod of Ages is a really good item on AP junglers, but the thing about Rod of Ages on Ekko is this is where the builds split, because either you choose to get Rod of Ages immediately, and you have to get Rod of Ages immediately if you're going to get it, because as you guys know, it powers up as an item. And then if you get Rod of Ages immediately, you're not going to be able to get the Zonias for a really long time. And then if you do that, you're not going to have Zonias combos. So that's really where the build split off, but this build does a ton of damage and it's really efficient, so I recommend it, but well, we'll talk about this when we get to it. So Rod of Ages, it is a good item. It's kind of expensive, but as soon as you get it, you're going to have a lot of health, gives you an insane amount of ability power, and you just do more damage. I mean, it's just such a great item, even on the AP, or especially on AP junglers. It's good on mid laners too, but it's like low-key really OP on AP junglers. Next up, Abyssal Scepter. Same reason we're taking it up here. 70 ability power is a lot. I mean, as you can see, Rod of Ages base only gives you 80, and this gives you 70 ability power. Abyssal Scepter is dirt cheap, gives you some magic resistance, which is good to go along with all the health that Rod of Ages gives you, and it reduces the magic resistance of nearby enemies, so you're going to be doing even more damage. And once again, like I said, we're trying to focus on getting Spell Pin with Sorc Shoes and Abyssal, rather than taking CDR on this part of the build. Next up, you're going to get Lich Bane, and it really doesn't matter if you get Lich Bane before Abyssal or afterwards. That's up to you. I would get Abyssal first because it's so cheap, but if you want to get Lich Bane first, you can, and Lich Bane is a really important item on Ekko. It gives you that Spellblade, which, as we talked about earlier, you really do need to have a Spellblade on Ekko. It's pretty much the best. Since you auto-attack so much and your spells are on a low cooldown, that's why it's really good. Also, it gives you some movement speed, which coped with the Runic Ekko movement speed. You're going to be going pretty much faster than Tank Ekko with Boots of Swiftness. And more mobility on Ekko is just great for his kit, the way it works. And then some more mana, it'll solve some of your mana problems, but really those are solved by Rod of Ages and Runic Echoes. And then by the time that, so you don't necessarily have to rush Lich Bane over Abyssal, because Lich Bane scales with your ability power. So the earlier that you get Lich Bane as an item, the weaker it is as soon as you buy it. So really, you can wait a little while once you already have some AP items built up, and then when you get Lich Bane, it'll be a huge power spike, rather than getting it early and then having to wait until it actually makes a difference. So that's why I put it later in the build. And then finally, for your last item, so far you have a lot of damage and you have some magic resist. So at this point, you need to be getting some armor. I would recommend Deadman's Plate because I love it to death. It's such a good item. But if you want more damage, or you want to get Zhonya's at this point, you can. Zhonya's is a lot more expensive, but it gives you a lot more damage and it helps you with your combos. And once again, if you're versus crit champions, or doubled ADC, or just a fed Vayne, then Randuin's Omen's the item you want to get here. So, now onto the AP Nuke build. So once again, same first two items. You're going to take Runic Echoes. If you don't want to take... by the way, I didn't say this... I said it up here, but I didn't say it here. If you want to take Blue Smite, that's fine on Ekko. It'll help your ganks a lot, but I really wouldn't recommend taking Red Smite. It's okay on Ekko, it's not bad, but I just think the other two are better. And I prefer Green Smite because I like to place forwards when I have a red trinket. Now, Sorc Shoes, because you don't have any magic pin on your rune page, so you need to get some early, and this is how you do it. Next up, you're going to go straight into Zhonya's, and this is why you have to take the Strength of the Ages mastery with the AP Nuke build, because you're just building raw AP and resistances, but you're not getting any health so far. Like pretty much this whole build, you're not going to build any health until you need it on your last item. Like, I recommend these first 5, and then the last item is up to you. But anyways, Zhonya's helps with your combos. When you go in with one of your spells, you can activate Zhonya's. Then you will, you can go invulnerable after you shoot in your W, and then your W will still go off even if you're in Zhonya's when it procs. And after Zhonya's, you can just immediately ult. You'll get a really big heal, and if the enemies were near you, you can do a lot of damage to them. It just combos really well with Ekko, and you'll see more of this in the gameplay, but just know that it's really good on Ekko. Next, you're going to get Lich Bane, and I forgot to mention this. You actually want to get Sheen before you even start building Zhonya's. And the reason for that is kind of the same reason you get Lich Bane really late, because Sheen scales with your base attack damage. So if you get it early, it's actually pretty good. But if you immediately rushes Lich Bane's not going to do really that much more damage at all than just Sheen would have done. So get Sheen, keep it there, finish your Zhonya's, and then get a Lich Bane, and then it's going to be it's going to make a huge difference. Lich Bane, once again, it's just a great item on Ekko. It's a lot of AP, a huge damage Spellblade, and you get bonus movement speed. So all those things together just really scale well with Ekko. Then next, Abyssal Scepter, same reason you always get it on Ekko. It helps you do more damage since you don't have magic pen on your rune page. Gives you 70 ability power, which isn't bad, and it gives you 50 magic resist, which is pretty good versus, I mean, you know, the magic resist is good as well. Now, finally, as for the last item, like I said, this is up to you. If you're really fed, you can go Rabadons, but Rabadons is like the most expensive item in the game, I think. Or, yeah, it's tied with Triforce. It's absurdly expensive. It's really hard to actually complete. If you are ahead, it's great to get, but I just, you know, it's so expensive. If you can't get it, if it's a really close game, I recommend Void Staff over it. Void Staff will give you pretty much, well, it'll give you near the same damage. Death Cap will obviously give you more, but the Magic Pin, along with this being 80 ability power, Void Staff is a really good offensive item, so it's a lot cheaper. It's over 1,000 gold cheaper than Death Cap, so if it's an even game, I'd probably recommend Void Staff. If you're just really ahead, go Death Cap. And then, or you can go Rylai's. Rylai's is actually really good on Ekko. A lot of people don't think it's that great because his Q already slows, but his Q only slows if they stay in the sphere when it goes off. And if they don't, then the slow instantly ends, and Rylai's would have been better. Also, Rylai's will apply with your passive, and it'll apply when you E in. And if you manage to hit your ult on multiple people, they'll all be slowed by Rylai's. So it's a really good item. It also gives you some health, which is good for survivability's sake. And 100 ability power is no joke. That's a lot of ability power on a single item. So it is really good on Ekko. I don't care if people say Ekko already has slows. Rylai's is a very good item on him. Take it from me. And you can get it in place of Rabadons if you feel like you just need more health. And then finally, you can get Masteries too if you want. It's a little bit easier to build up than Rylai's. That's pretty much the only benefit of it. In terms of damage, 80 ability power, but also more Magic Pin, and your spells will burn, so this still does a lot of damage. All four of these items pretty much do, well, Death Cap definitely does the most damage, but then the other three do about the same amount of damage. So all of this damage, Landry's is good, but I do have to rank it as the worst out of these items to get on him. You can, but really Landry's is a lot better if you combo it with Rylai's, and you can't really do that with this build, unless if you want to trade out Landry's for Abyssal and then get Rylai's as your last one, but Landry's is almost 1,000 gold more expensive than Abyssal, so I don't really recommend that. So anyways, it's there, it's good, but it's just not better than these. And that's going to be it, finally, for all the items. Just the downside to Ekko is that he has 3 distinct build paths, so it's a lot of items to take in. And we're going to move on to the gameplay, and by the way, the gameplay is going to be using the AP Nuke build with the Strength of the Ages Masteries, in case if you were wondering about that. So anyways, yeah, next up is the gameplay. Okay, so here we are loading into the game, and like I just said at the end of the item sets, if you skip that part, this is going to be the AP Nuke build. If you want to see some different gameplays, I already have some up of Tank Ekko, but just let me know. I do play Ekko a ton because he is my main, so if I ever have a bad game, or I just really want to beat someone, or you know, first game of the day, pretty much I play Ekko all the time. I'll mix in other champions a lot, but you know, Ekko is my go-to, and I'll get plenty of gameplay, plenty of different builds. So anyways, long story short, if you guys want one of the different kind of builds, just let me know. I can release them pretty much at any time because I play Ekko so much. Now, as for this game, and with every game, when you're loading in, you want to look at both teams and try to plan out your early game. As far as the enemy team, they have a Poppy, and Poppy is actually one of those junglers that can cheese really hard at level 2, and that's just because her stun is insane at first rank. Let me see. It already stuns for 1.6 seconds, and it's not hard at all to hit if she catches you doing your blue. And then it does a ton of damage. So anyways, long story short, if you're versus a Poppy, you need to be careful of early game invades. So because of that, I think I'm going to start at the blue, and then do Raptors and go straight to my red. That's pretty much the easiest way to get both your buffs. Raptors are really easy to clear. The only thing is you want to kill the little ones before the big one. And when you're versus a jungler that might invade, that's really what you need to do. Also, we're on red team, and let's turn off chat. Okay, so take your W at level 1. We already talked about that a little bit. Apparently I'm starting at Gromp. It is kind of risky versus Poppy, but I guess I didn't think. Well, I do have this ward here, and since I just placed the ward, I'm going to know if she comes from here. And if she comes from this way, then I'll see her and be able to escape pretty easily. So I think that's why I started at Gromp. Basically, the only important part about Ekko's jungling is you throw your W at 1 minute and 38 seconds, always, versus any camp. And the reason for that is that lets the camp auto you once, and then you will get your stun off. And that means while the camp is stunned, you'll regain life back to full, and then that'll technically give you the highest health clear. You don't need to throw stun any later. It's not going to benefit you more if you stun them when you've taken more damage. And if you throw it at 137, that would stun them as soon as they land. But if you do that, then you're not going to be regaining the life that you would have when it was low. So, onto this blue, and I actually kind of butcher this blue. Basically, when you're clearing your first buff, oh no, I did pretty well. That must have been a different game. Oh yeah, I did a certain, okay, I completely forgot I did this game. So, basically, this game, what I'm going to do is clear, I cleared Gromp, I cleared blue, I'm going to clear wolves, and when you're clearing mobs, you just throw your stun at them, and try to aim your Q to where it'll hit all 3 monsters, and then your Q will get 2 strikes of your passive, and when you auto them for the 3rd strike, it'll kill all the little monsters, and then you just work on the big one. But what I did this game, and what you can do on red side, it's not very possible on blue side, because then you would have to start at Gromp and get a top laner leash, and that's really not good enough for Ekko. You almost always have to start with your bot lane. But anyways, when you're on red side, what you can do is clear Gromp, clear blue, clear wolves. I'm going to clear raptors, and then I'm going to clear Krugs, and I'm going to ward my red. So what this does is it gets me to almost level 4. I'll be level 4 as soon as I start the red later, and it gets me enough gold to get my jungle item immediately before I even come back out and gank. And leaving your red buff out means that you're going to have the most important buff for ganking, so I'm still going to be able to do that when I get back. So that's why I did that this game. I'll probably do this a lot of games when I'm on red side, unless one of my laners, unless if there's just a really easy gank immediately, or I forget. But this is actually really good to do on pretty much any weak first clear jungler, because that way, or this way, you can be sure that you'll be able to gank. So I am going to have to smite the Krug here, but I did live. If you're brand new to Ekko, you might not want to do this route, because as you can see, I lived with 70 HP, and I'm really good at Ekko. So it might be more difficult to live, but if you can pull this off, then you'll be able to go back, get your red, you'll be level 4, you'll be full health, and since you already bought your jungle item, whichever one it is, you don't have sustain problems anymore. Ekko's sustain problems pretty much disappear as soon as you get this. You definitely don't, you probably won't get back to full unless you keep killing scuttle crabs, but you'll have pretty good health. So anyways, enough about the clear. I haven't even talked about what to gank this game. So top lane, it's Vlad versus Shin. Vlad has a very powerful escape in his pool, but if he wastes his pool, then he's really easy to gank. So I'll probably be looking top a little bit. However, my top laner is a Shin, and it's never really that good to gank tank lanes, because even if you snowball a tank really far ahead, there's still a tank. So ideally, I'll be able to gank this mid lane, get the Talon ahead. As far as bot lane goes, they have Thresh and Caitlyn. Caitlyn's a really long range champion, and she has an escape on her E. And if that's not enough, Thresh can save her. So definitely the easiest lane to gank is mid lane. So I'm going to come mid. I'm level 4 like we talked about. I'm full life. I've got a red buff. I asked, the Talon told me that this was not warded. So I came in expecting him to farm like normal, except it was definitely warded. As you can see, Victor ran away immediately. And my Talon lied to me, but whatever, it's not that big a deal. But just waste a little bit of time. Oh yeah, and then Poppy tries to fight me. So Poppy, earlier we said she's really good at level 2 invades, but Poppy tried to fight me when she just had Hunter's Talisman and she wasn't full life. She's missing a little bit of life here, yeah. You can see she's missing about 100 life, 150 life. I'm full life, and I have my jungle item, and I have a red buff. Red buff is a lot better in 1v1s than blue buff. Blue buff, of course, keeps your mana up so you can clear your whole jungle, but as far as red buff goes, it slows and it does more damage. So already I'm posed to win this 1v1, but Poppy doesn't know that. So she's going to come try to fight me. She does smite the scuttle crab. My smite was up. I don't know why I didn't smite it actually, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Then Poppy flashes to stun me into the wall. So she played this as well as she could, but as you can see, she does her full combo, and since I'm in the defense tree, I went for Strength of the Ages, you know, it barely lowers me to half life. Then she's off a cooldown, and then it's just me. And here, Poppy just flashed to stun me into the wall, remember? So I'm pretty much free to just kill her. And then Vlad comes in with Shin, but Vlad is really a weak early game champion. This was a lot about me knowing these champion matchups. Poppy wasn't full life, and I had a red, so I was going to be able to beat her. And then Vlad, before level... Vlad hits his first power spike at level 7, and only at level 7 is he able to lane versus any enemy. Like, that's how weak Vlad is early. He does have a very monstrous late game, and that's why. But early game, don't even worry about Vlad. So Vlad comes in, he uses all his spells, he obviously doesn't kill me. I almost hit the stun on him. As you see, he had to flash, and then me and Shin are just going to leave because Victor was on the way. But this was definitely great for my team because Poppy flashed trying to kill me. She messed up, didn't work. Vlad flashes, or else we would have killed him. And then Victor is actually going to flash here to try to finish one of us off, but he places his stun instead of queuing immediately. If he had queued immediately and autoed, he might have got me. But as soon as he flashed over, I E over this wall, I'm safe, and then Shin's tanky enough to get out of here with his flash. So I still have my flash. We got 3 enemy flashes, and all we lost was Shin's flash. So overall, huge lead to my team already. Kill score doesn't say it, but what this means is that I am free to gank top or mid. It's gonna work out because not only do they not have their flash, but I still have mine. So that just means I'm in an immense lead versus their laners. And then Poppy, just by what she just did, I was pretty sure at this point that either she wasn't a jungle main or she just wasn't that great at Poppy or something was up. You know, I'm not worried about this Poppy anymore. So the game's looking pretty well. Pretty good. And as you can see, it is a 20-minute surrender. The reason I did that was, 1, I did actually make plays early, and then 2, I didn't want a really long gameplay because we already talked so much about everything else about Ekko, so we don't want this video to be like 3 hours long. So anyways, Poppy's clearing a ward. I'm going to go ahead and stun her, and then as you can see, I run away. And that's really something that you have to learn how to do on Ekko. It's kind of like Zac. Ekko and Zac both have very unique fighting styles, and that's why that's part of the difficulty of them. But once you get it, you know, you'll get it, and it's like riding a bike. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Pretty much on Ekko, it's almost always to damage someone, like I'm going to do here, and then just run away. And the reason that you're free to run away is because your E is a 2-part blink. So if it looked good enough to come back in, I could just E back into the Poppy. But really, I only have Bard here. My Corki's back at base, and they have both their bot lane. So I don't really want to fight this, but I got some free harass off on Poppy, and it's going to be fine for me. Thing to note, Scuttlecrab loses his resistances if you, or her, Scuttlecrab's a girl by the way, it loses her resistances if you stun her. So if you can land your W on it, you should. Also, it's kind of a little practice for your W because sometimes Scuttlecrab decides she wants to juke, but you know, stun Scuttlecrab, it makes it a lot easier to clear because it loses 50 magic resist and 50 armor. Here, I ward up. This is what you do when you're ahead. Even as Ekko, even though Ekko's a weak early game jungler, 1, I'm really good at Ekko, so I'm pretty confident on him, and then 2, I had a level over this Poppy, so even though I'm not going to fight her here, I can still ward around, find out where she is, and what this does is, 1, tells my whole team where Poppy is. She's at the red, so that means she's doing the red. We can still see that she's doing it, so bot lane's free to harass if they need to or whatever. Shin would be free if he was in lane to do whatever he wants. And now that this is warded, I know that I'm not going to get counter ganked. As soon as Victor knew that I was warding, which Poppy saw my ward and my W, so they definitely knew it was me. Victor should have ran, but for some reason he stays in lane, and he doesn't have flash, remember, because we outplayed him earlier up here. So he's a Victor pushed up without flash. So I go ahead on him. I do my spell combo. Let's see. We'll play it in slow motion. I didn't have my W, but when it's a Victor this pushed up, Victor has no escapes whatsoever. So I don't even need my W to kill him with a high damage talent, and I do a lot of damage because this is a damage Ekko. So anyways, the easiest way to combo an Ekko is to E in first and then throw your Q, because if you do that, your Q will immediately go into the slow stage where it doesn't travel out anymore, and then it'll come back to you. This way, 1, the enemy's going to be slowed while you're auto attacking them. 2, it's the easiest way to hit your Q because you can barely miss it right after you E in. And then 3, there's no 3, I lied. Anyways, so I get off my 3 autos, and then my passive goes off. Well, I get off my passive, so then that's a nuke. And then once my Q starts coming back to me, it does the return more damage. So I get the kill. I'm not worried about taking kills because this was the AP Nuke Ekko, and that's definitely the most likely to carry build. just because you do so much damage. You know, if you get really far ahead, you're going to carry. But the downside, that Talon didn't get the kill. I do want Talon to get as much kills as possible as well. It's kind of like we both want to get the kill, so I'm not sad that I got it, but if I can get Talon more kills, that'll help us out too. Now I go back, get my Runic Echoes, get Boots, and then I get Vision Ward. And on Ekko, no matter what the build is, I always get Boots 1, leave it there, finish my second item. So on Tank Ekko, it would be Frozen Gauntlets. On this build, it's going to be a Sheen, and then maybe, I think I build Sheen. Yeah, anyways, just build your second main item before you finish your Boots. With Runic Echoes, there's no reason not to, because Runic Echoes gives you a bunch of movement speed anyways. And then with Tank Ekko, Frozen Gauntlets give you so many slows that you won't need the Boots there either. So, either way, you know, build Boots later. Here, Shin and Vlad get in a fight. Shin somehow lives this. I have no idea how he did. But basically, Vlad was already dead. As soon as... Let's see when Vlad died. I'll tell you the exact moment that Vlad was dead. It's probably when he W'd. Yeah, as soon as he W'd, he was dead. Because what his W does is it takes... What's the cost? Like 20% of his current life. And if you're high health when you W, it's going to take, you know, more life. Because it's 20% of your current life. As soon as he W'd, he was low enough for me to kill. As you remember, Ekko's W passive is that you deal a lot more damage if the enemies are under 30% life. So Vlad being about half health means I'm going to Q. I'm going to save my E. The reason that I saved my E here is because I was pretty sure Vlad had Flash. And if you can save your gap closer until they use their dash or blink or flash or whatever it is, you're going to be able to follow up on him. So I walk up, I Q him, I've got the slow, I get the 3 hits of my passive, he flashes away, then I auto attack him and I actually use my E as an auto reset there. So we'll actually watch this again in slow motion, just so you can see everything happening at once. So as soon as Vlad comes out of his W, I'm going to Q him, I'm going to auto him once, I'm going to move a little bit in front of him, I'm going to auto him again. The Q is going to come back in, he actually flashes the Q, that doesn't matter, he's slowed from my red buff and my passive. I'm going to auto him again, and then I use my E immediately after my auto attack. That's because it's an auto reset. I dashed through him so I don't waste any time, and then I'm going to go ahead and kill him. But yeah, that's just the power of Ekko versus low health targets. If you ever find someone about half life in a game, you're going to kill them just because of the way Ekko works. If they're full life, it's a lot harder. You have to hit your stun, but in that case, it's not a problem. And then here, my Talon gets ganked, but he outplays them and kills the Victor. And then I'm just around in case Poppy does something stupid. And we almost catch her with my stun, but then Bard actually hits it. So Bard actually played this really well. He threw his ult to where if Poppy dodged my stun, she either ran into us and we killed her, or she ran into his ult and we killed her. So she ults me and Talon to try to live, and I want to make sure that I'm tanking it this whole time, which I did tank it because I still have my ult up. So I can tank it, and then your ult will break turret aggro. So if there's 3 of us tanking it, or if there's 3 of us diving, I can tank it for as long as I can. I'll get my ult off, and then I'll be fine. But here, Vlad tried to stop me from stealing their blue, but Runic Echoes does so much damage that I was just going to be able to smite it, and I'm out of here. So, this game, it doesn't look like it's really over, because our bot lane's kind of struggling. No, see, now our bot lane isn't struggling, they just got double kill. So now it's definitely over, but even if bot lane was doing bad, if you have a fed Talon and an Ekko, we're both going the assassin routes, and we have a Shin to save us, it's pretty much GG. If you have 2 assassins that are very fed and then a Shin to save them with his ultimate, what can the enemies possibly do, you know? So, but we'll keep talking about the game because it's still 5 or 8 more minutes. So let's see. Victor is pushing mid. I have a lot more movement speed than him because I have Runic Echoes and he only has Boots 1. So I'm going to be able to catch up to him, and then I do the same combo, the pretty easy combo that you almost always do. You EQ, and that way your Q will pretty much guarantee hit them, and then they'll be slowed by it. You can either auto-attack them again or the second part of your Q. The only time that you don't Q first is if you have to use your Q to pretty much slow them to catch up to them. If you can catch up to them with your E, it's always better, but if you need to throw in your Q first, slow them in order to catch them with your E, or if you're just harassing someone and then they happen to take both parts of your Q and then you realize you can kill them, then you can E in after that. But if you know you're going for the kill, then use E first. And then here, I wanted to take Dragon because 1, I can solo it. 2, when you're ahead, you should take Dragons and you should make sure that the enemy doesn't get any, because 1, getting it's going to increase your ability power and attack damage by 6%. That's not that big a deal, but if you can deny the enemy Dragon, then they're not going to get this 6% bonus. And then really the 6% bonus, you can kind of think of it as a 12% bonus, or you just actually debuffing the enemies. So it's good to complete Dragon Control. We can talk about mid, because I actually kind of outplay these guys. I tried to E over the wall, but that was pretty bronze of me. I didn't make it. And here, I come in on Vic and Poppy. They do dodge my Q because I can't hit skill shots. And then I'm going to run away because, I mean, to them it looks like they're about to kill me, but what I'm doing is making it to where my ult hits them pretty easily. So as soon as my ult was right here, you can't actually see the hologram for some reason, but as soon as I know my ult's going to hit Victor, I don't care if it hits Poppy, but as soon as I know it's going to hit Victor, I use it, I go in, it heals me a little bit. That wasn't the point. The point was it did 300 of Victor's life immediately, and then I use my Q at the Poppy, so she leaves me alone, and then Talon flashes in, uses his combo on the Victor, and then I'm going to go ahead and E onto the Poppy, because I knew Talon could kill the Victor at this point. Remember, me and Talon are both really fed at this point in the game, so I trust that the Talon's going to be able to kill the Victor. I go on the Poppy to make 1 kill into 2. We get the Poppy as well, and then I get out of there. So now me and Talon both have 4 kills, and he has actually more assists than me somehow. But we're both doing really well, and this is what you want to do on Ekko. On pretty much any carry jungler, you don't want to take every kill for yourself, because 1, that puts all the pressure onto you to carry the game, and then 2, you know, I have an assassin Talon mid, so if I get him kills, it's just going to make the game so much easier for both of us. So now it's just better clearing, and as you can see, as soon as you get your runic echoes, jungling becomes super easy. But if you're just really struggling, you can go Hunter's Potion. That'll help you a lot. I just almost never go it on Ekko. Now, I think Vlad was really low top. Yeah, I come to check to see if he's around here. He's not, so I'm just going to push the wave. And as soon as I started pushing, Shin actually ulted bot. And there's no way I can get bot. So what I'm going to do is take this. My goal, as soon as Shin ulted, was to take this turret. So I'm going to push this wave. Your Q almost kills the whole wave. And then you'll have another Q before long anyways. It's really not on a long cooldown at all. So I kill as many minions as I can. And then I'm going to go back up to here. And even though the wave was pushed towards my turret, since I killed that one wave behind it, what's going to happen is as soon as we kill these minions are going to meet the next minions at the turret. And when you're pushing a turret, just a fun note for you, you want to stand in front of your minions like this, as far back on the turret, as long as you know that the enemies aren't coming. Because obviously, this puts you close to their base, therefore it's a worse positioning. But if you stand in the way of the minions, then 1, these minions will hit you instead of your minions, so they'll get to hit the turret longer, and 2, your minions will hit the turret instead of these minions. So it's always better to get in the way. I throw my Q to try and kill them before they get here, because I don't want my minions to switch targets like they're doing. Don't really know why I stun the minions, I guess to get them to stop hitting my minions. And then I get some damage on the turret, and I take a little bit, it's not that big a deal. Finish clearing it, and I'm gonna take turret. That really wasn't that important, but, you know. So some of you might have just watched that and think, you know, who cares how to kill a turret? You know, that's not that big a deal. But the thing about getting really good at a champion is that you master all the little things first, and then you can work on the big things, or every little thing matters is a better way to say it. So even though you guys might not think that pushing a turret's that big a deal, you should try to perfect every single part of your gameplay. And then, I'm not a perfect Ekko player, but I am very good at Ekko. But what I'm trying to say is, don't dismiss the little things because you think they don't matter. You want to perfect every single part of your gameplay on a champion, and then once you do that, you'll get really good at them. So yeah, I run into Poppy, not a big deal. Like I said, this game's pretty much over. A lot of it came down to, 1, that massive outplay at their blue buff early game, and then 2, they played Victor mid. Victor's not a bad mid, but versus an Ekko that can hit his stun, Victor's going to get stunned for 2.25 seconds, and then you have a damaged Ekko and a damaged Talon wailing on him. Both of us got really fed. And we have the Shin. Like I said, our team comp was such that if we got ahead early, we were definitely going to win. And if we didn't get ahead early, the enemy team had a pretty good team fight comp. They have Victor and Vlad, Vlad's ult, if you don't know, it makes all his ally champions do more damage. And then Victor does a lot of AoE damage on his own. So if they had gotten ahead, it would have been a lot harder for us. But since we're ahead, they can't really catch up. And then now, oh yeah, I destroyed the Vladimir here. I forgot about this. I go to do the Gromp just because I'm greedy and it's not that hard to kill. But my Corki was even more greedy than me. He's trying to farm these minions. Vladimir comes up on him, Vladimir ults, and Vladimir is obviously going to go for this kill. You know, one, they probably already decided they're going to surrender at 20. Two, Corki's like, no, if Vlad hit one more spell on Corki, Corki would have died to Vlad's ult. So Vlad's going to chase him up here. Since I know that, I'm just going to throw the W right here. Vlad's going to obviously walk into it. I E over the wall. While he's stunned, I'm going to kill him. It's not a problem. Throw out the BM, Mastery emote, and I'm out of here. So yeah, I guess we can talk about generally what you want to do on Ekko. You want to go with the best clear that you can early while avoiding the enemy champion. This game I actually did the 5 camp clear, not my red. If you can do that, then when you go get your red, you'll be at full health and you'll have red buff, so you can get really good ganks off. But you can really only do that on red team. It's not going to work on Ekko on blue team. You could do it on different champions on blue team, but Ekko's first clear is so bad that you always have to start with your bot lane. Then after that, one thing to note about Ekko's W, it didn't really apply this game since they're almost all range champions, but if you're versus melee champions, when you're ganking, the best place to throw your W is on your ally, because if the melee champion acts like they want to go in, then you know, it just makes a lot more sense to throw it on your ally. If they try to harass your ally, you're going to get the free W on them. But that doesn't really apply to range champions. Range champions, you usually throw it right behind them. And then, like I said, you want to show up when your W is about to land. You want to show up at the time that your W will instantly stun people when you show up. Because you only have, let's see. It just says short-lived. The W only stays for like 1 second, so you don't really have much time to get into it. So you need to get into it as soon as you can. But anyways, we get in a team fight here. They kind of push me out of it. No, they don't push me. Okay. Poppy actually ults me here. I forgot. Poppy ults me as soon as I walk in. And Ekko can actually directly counter Poppy's ult. Like, as soon as she hit me, I could just ult right now and come back in. But since I was damage Ekko, I don't want to do that. You know, I want to save that. On tank Ekko, I would definitely do that. But on damage Ekko, you got to play a little more safe. I come in, we kill the Vic, and basically my team's doing all the work for me. I do have my ultimate here, however, so I can go as deep as I want. I kill the Caitlyn. And then I actually zone used here. The reason that I zone used here was, one, Vlad was hitting me instead of Corki for some reason. And then two, zone use lets my ult catch up to me. So if Vlad had run up, you know, trying to hit his E on me as soon as my zone use ended, my ult would have caught up, I would have ulted, and I would have killed the Vlad. And that's how you use zone use with your combos. It works with both your W and your ult, remember? Like I said, if you want to throw your W, what you can do is E in, place your W on yourself, and then zone use immediately, and then as soon as zone use ends, your W will pop, and you'll stun everyone around you, or you can just go in, take some damage, then zone use, then your ult will catch up, and then you ult out of your zone use, and you'll heal from the damage before that. But anyways, sorry if my commentary got kind of spacey at the end. Nah, it was fine. So that's how you play Ekko. We covered abilities, runes, masteries, item sets, every item set, gameplay, how to gank, how to treat higher pressure junglers, you know, everything on Ekko. If you guys want other gameplays, make sure to let me know in the comment section below if you want a damage gameplay, or if you want the Bruiser gameplay, or if you want the tank gameplay. Just let me know. I'll be happy to get those out to you because Ekko is definitely my favorite champion to play. And I hope I could teach you guys a little bit on how to play Ekko. He's a really hard champion. It takes a while. Like I said, he kind of has that unique playstyle, kind of like Zac. So you're not going to play him first game and then know exactly what you're doing. Fun story for me. I picked up Ekko because one of my friends was playing him, and he told me that Ekko was like the best champion ever. So I started playing Ekko. I started out with damage Ekko every game, like full damage, because that was the best damage build in Season 5. That's really hard to pull off. Full damage like this is definitely the most difficult way to play Ekko. So I did that every game. Then I tried tank Ekko one time, and I realized that tank Ekko is just like easy version damage Ekko. So if you're new to Ekko, I highly recommend you try tank Ekko to learn him, and then you can move on to damage Ekko. Or you can do it the really hard way like I did. Go damage Ekko first, and then tank Ekko will be so easy for you. You'll be running why you didn't do it the whole time. So anyways, that's it for the Ekko guide. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, leave a like or subscribe. Once again, Ekko's my favorite champion. I'd be happy to give out videos for him. Also, follow me on Twitter if you haven't already. I do tweet out a lot of stuff during LCS if you want to see my opinions on that. Or I'll ask questions about the YouTube channel there. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.